Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into cobblestone shoes, crunching gravel underfoot as dawn bleeds through linen tents. Mist curls around your knees like hungry cats. Those burlap sacks rustle with secrets kept safe from frost. Breathe in, it's all loam and wood smoke, with a faint tang of iron from the coins jangling in your belt. You squint at the first stall, a mountain of turnip bulbs pale as ghost stories. A farmer's thumb splits one open, juice dripping like stolen honey. 3 coppers per sack, he grunts, or trade for a rabbit's hind foot tied with red string. Medieval seed fairs weren't just markets, they were survival math. Every exchange balanced hope against hunger. Fun fact, those crisp lines of cabbages we see today, they're genetic descendants of woody, bitter stalks traded at fairs like this. But here's a nugget your history teacher skipped. Some monks wrote prayer verses on pumpkin seeds, claiming holy words made squash grow faster. Skeptical. So were their abbots. A juggler weaves past his hands, juggling hazelnuts instead of blades. You sidestep and nearly trip over a crate of pomegranate saplings, their roots bald in mud-stained lace. Careful with that, snaps a woman stirring fermented fish paste. Those thorns drew blood from a countess once. You mutter an apology, but your eyes linger on the lace. Was it torn from a wedding veil? A shroud? Historians still argue whether these fairs spread crop knowledge, or just dysentery and debt. Your satchel brushes a pyramid of acorns, each cap stamped with a pig's face. For truffle groves, explains a girl missing 2 front teeth. Plant 'em upside down under a full moon. She pockets your spare button without blinking. Nearby, a man barters sheep's wool for millet, his fingers flicking quick as a card shark's. 3 measures for winter's sowing, he insists, or your children'll gnaw chair legs by Lent. Pigeon coos drown the haggling. A boy offers dung-caked barley scooped from a dovecote. Fertilizer included, he grins. You decline, but remember the rotten egg stench of last season's failed rye crop. A crone interrupts her basket, overflowing with carrot tops. The purple ones sweeten goat's milk, she whispers, but only if you plant 'em during a dog's howl. You laugh, then stop. Her pupils are twin eclipse rings, black swallowing brown hole. A brewer waves you over his ale vat bubbling with suspicious herbs. Trade your boots, he offers, for wheat that grows in poor soil. You hesitate, torn between frostbite and famine. The crowd surges, elbowing you toward a tarp covered in melon rinds. Seeds glitter inside like insect eyes, each labeled in soot ink. From the Holy Land, rasps the vendor, sprout in 40 days, or your sins are mortal. Distant church bells drown his pitch, time's up for early bargains. The sun burns off the mist, exposing patches of dead grass where bartering grew too heated. You stumble into a circle of embroidered cushions. A tea seller pours steaming mint into clay cups. Free sip, she winks, but the recipe costs a squirrel pelt. Your tongue tingles, sweetness cut with vinegar. Was that saffron? nightshade. A crash erupts. Two men topple a cart of onions. They brawl silently, both clutching the same seed pouch. You step back, heel crushing a walnut shell. Inside, a single almond wrapped in vellum. Plant this by flowing water, reads the script, and await the bridge builder. You pocket it just as a sheriff's horn blares. The crowd stills, hands sliding into sleeves and under cloaks. The tea seller shoves a smoldering sage bundle into your free hand. For purity, she hisses, they'll check your nails for blight at the gate. You stare at your dirt-caked cuticles, the little half-moons blackened by yesterday's failed parsley experiment. Footsteps approach, boots crunching gravel like bone meal. Your pulse thuds in sync with the herbalist's mortar and pestle. Crunch grind, as shadowed figures part the crowd. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time below. I want to know whose nights are tangled with mine. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Dawn sharpens into harsh gold, the kind that shows every cobweb and stitch in the tents. Your thumb rubs the almond's vellum, rough fiber, against calloused skin. A breeze snakes through, carrying whispers from the heirloom cart ahead. Seeds that outlived empires, croons the keeper, sprout and taste Pharaoh's figs. You reach for your last silver button, its edges chewed by generations of moths. The sheriff's men draw closer, their breath reeking of pickled turnips and authority. A child tugs your sleeve, her palm cupping a cracked acorn. Hide this, she mouths. Tomorrow's storm'll wash away the week. You swallow the almond, suddenly heavy as a tomb seal. Somewhere, a lute string snaps, its discordant twang masking the sheriff's shouted order. The crowd surges again, a human tide pulling you toward the cloth merchant's stall. Burlap scrapes your cheek, the scent of hemp and desperation clogging your throat. You grip the almond tighter, vellum biting into flesh. Choices hover like wasps over cider, swarm or sting. The heirloom cart beckons, its speckled beans glinting under a frayed canopy. But the vellum, the bridge builder, the child's knowing smirk, they itch louder than lice in a beggar's beard. The tea seller's sage smoke coils around your ankles, a serpent made of ash and escape roots. One of the sheriff's men locks eyes with you, his hand resting on a coiled whip. The crowd's roar dims your ears, filling with the buzz of a single trapped fly. Well, his gaze says innocent or indebted. You open your mouth, the lie already sour on your tongue, when a thunderclap splits the sky. Fat raindrops slap the tents, drowning his reply in chaos. The almond slips into your boot, secreted against a hole in the toe. You turn toward the heirloom cart, coat pulled over your head as the first screams rise above the storm. Your boots crunch through straw as an oak-armed woman beckons. Her cart groans under seed-laden clay pots. She unfurls a sun-bleached cloth, speckled beans spill like garnets coughed up from the earth's throat. Black speckled favas, she croaks the wrinkles around her mouth, deepening with each syllable. Grew these when Acre still flew Christian banners. Historians still argue whether crusaders carried home beans or just dysentery, but you pocket 8 seeds anyway. The woman's thumbnail, yellowed as old parchment, taps your offered silver button engraved with a bee. Traded flax for buttons at St. Ives, Faire in '89. She muses, nodding at the corroded crest. You don't mention medieval buttons, rarely held real silver, even gilds stamped tin to mimic nobility. Dried husks crackle under your fingernails as you inspect the beans, each ridge a tiny map of lost harvests. Crop rotation wasn't just medieval math, planting legumes after wheat put nitrogen back into starved soil. These seeds remember that alchemy their ancestors kissed by Frankish rains and Saracen suns. Chew one, the grower insists, her breath smelling of turnip stew and skepticism. The bean crunches bitter, then dissolves into earthiness like bread crusts charred in a communal oven. Tastes like Jerusalem, she smirks, though neither of you know what Jerusalem tastes like. A passing monk snorts, muttering about heretics mixing scripture with legumes. Her palm claps over your wrist when you reach for more. 4 buttons for the lot, or tell my beans a secret worth keeping. You hesitate, knuckles brushing the dagger at your belt, but violence rarely sprouts good crops. And gossip says favas, planted after bloodshed, grow thorns. The tension breaks when a shepherd's lost lamb rams the cart, scattering turnip seeds across the mud. You dive, rescuing 3 clay jars as the woman curses in language older than Latin. The lamb bleats apologies, its wool matted with burrs and poor life choices. Trade settled, you leave lighter in coin, but heavier in beans. They shiver against your hip, with every step plotting their rebellion against next season's frost. Some swear heirlooms grow better when carried against skin, though scholars blame body heat for fooling seeds into false spring. Halfway to the soil teller's, tense you freeze. 1 bean rattles loose from your pouch, rolling toward a ditch. It pauses, teetering on the edge, as if deciding between rebirth and oblivion. You rescue it, though part of you wonders what strangeness might have sprouted in that sewage. Dawn's mist lifts, exposing the Faire's first lies. A merchant's Egyptian king dates are just prunes rubbed in honey, their wrinkles too symmetrical for nature's hand. You clutch your speckled truths tighter, already imagining their vines clambering over monastery walls come June. Mud squelches between your fingers as you kneel. The soil teller's plot reeks of rot and rebirth. A grizzled farmer nudges a wooden dibber toward you, its handle worn smooth by generations of indecisive planters. Full moon next week, he grunts, tapping an almanac page stained with cider spills. Medieval crop calendars swore by lunar cycles. Peasants planting root crops during waning moons to channel earthbound magic. You glance south, where charred fields prove stars aren't always merciful. His calloused thumb jabs at your speckled favas. Legumes want shallow beds, 2 knuckles deep no more. The dibber's tip pierces loam, exposing stonefly larvae squirming like living commas. Ignore the worms, he mutters, though you've heard turnips thrive when planted beside beetle grubs. Historians still debate whether that's symbiosis or just hungry peasants eating pests before they breed. A peat clod crumbles in your palm, cold and spongy as a drowned man's flesh. Found these turnip seeds in a bog bin sleeping since Alfred burned the cakes. His chuckle smells of sour ale. Preservation through tannins wasn't just for leather. Waterlogged peat bogs kept Norse barley viable for 80 winters. You resist asking how he dates decay. Some secrets grow better undug. Sow 6 seeds here, he commands, scattering grit across a furrow. Taste the dirt first. Sour soil makes bitter roots. You comply, tongue stinging with iron and failure. The farmer nods approval, revealing teeth blackened by walnut husk tonics. None at Ely taught me that rest her nettle-wrapped bones. His knee pops like green timber as he rises, pointing to a willow basket bulging with moss. Peat holds memories. Wrap your seeds in bog hair before frost. You recognize sphagnum moss, same stuff surgeons packed in Crusader's wounds to slow gangrene. Whether it preserves turnips or just breeds peculiar fungi, well, that's tomorrow's problem. Rain drums sudden and fierce, turning planting rows into miniature canals. The farmer yanks a ram's bladder from his satchel, inflating it over your seeds like a grotesque bell jar. Goat gut keeps off hail, the virgin's own raincoat. You decline to mention bladder membranes dissolved in last spring's storms, drenching a prioress with fermented urine mid-benediction. Lightning flares, illuminating his dirt-caked fingernails, etching symbols into the mud. 3 crosses for blight resistance, circle for worms. Superstition or science? The answer dies with him come autumn. You etch the marks regardless. He presses a peat-wrapped parcel into your hands, its surface studded with pale turnip seeds. Bury these where your shadow points at noon, and pray for lazy badgers. A jest, until you recall badgers uprooted Langley's entire parsnip crop in '91. You trade a beeswax candle stub. Its smoke might mask soil scent from digging claws. The storm breaks, leaving behind the reek of wet wool and ambition. Your turnip seeds cling to the peat like ticks, dreaming of crunching beneath winter teeth. Farmers argue whether moon sowing outperforms blind chance. But you've met enough hungry winters to hedge bets. As you retreat from the mud, a ragged boy offers eel skins from a wicker creel. Line your planting holes, he lisps, missing front teeth, hinting at ill-advised dares. His price, 1 fava bean plucked from your dwindling stash. You haggle, settling for half an eel skin and a promise to name your first turnip after his mother. Dusk smudges the horizon, but not before you spot the soil teller whispering to your dibber. It leans against an oak, now carved with runes that definitely weren't there at noon. The farmer winks, tossing a hazelnut into your path. For the squirrels, he lies too smoothly. You pocket the nut anyway. The script between soil and seed rarely follows human logic. Some say agriculture is just gambling with extra dirt. Tonight's rain will decide who's right. The cider jug sloshes against your thigh. As you retreat, its dregs worth more than gold here. Malt-thick air guides your stumble toward a copper vat, its belly belching steam like a drunken giant. A woman stirs the froth with a femur bone, her sleeves rolled to reveal forearms scarred by boiling spills. Thirsty grains need thirsty souls, she croaks, tossing swollen barley kernels into your palm. Monks perfected these bronze-dappled strains, their abbey beers, outlasting plague outbreaks when well-water turned traitor. Her ladle dips, retrieving grains that gleam like wet teeth. Drought's kiss only makes them fiercer. You inhale earth smell beneath the malt, decay, and defiance fermenting together. Historians still argue whether barley beer saved more lives than clergy. But your tongue recalls the safe tang of monastic brews. The brewer's daughter materializes, a specter in steam, her apron pockets rattling with seed heads. 3 measures of your autumn press buys 10 stalks. She unscrews a goat's horn tube, spilling grains that whisper like dried snakeskin. Medieval brewsters often doubled as herbalists, their barley sown with chamomile to ease colicky babes. You nod too, aware your last cider amphora reeks of desperation. Throw in the chamomile seeds, you counter pointing to her belt pouch. She snorts, revealing a gap where superstition yanked a tooth. That's for love charms, not your sorry plot. Her mother barks laughter, stirring faster as clouds blot the sinking sun. Turns out barley once starred in betrothal rites, brides stuffing mattresses with husks to test suitors' loyalty. You pocket a stray kernel anyway. Maybe mice appreciate romantic gestures. The hag extends a hand webbed with burn scars. Cider first. You surrender the jug, wincing as she upends it over the vat. Amber liquid vanishes into steam, the air sweetening with sacrificed summer. Stalks under the north eaves, she commands, thrusting bound barley sheaves into your arms. Their husks rasp against your neck, parchment vows from a contract unsigned. Rain resurrects suddenly, pocking the vat's molten surface. The brewer curses, yanking a badger pelt over the grains. Lazy irrigation, she mutters, though you've heard barley thrives on neglect. Her daughter thrusts a cracked ladle at your chest. Taste the wort, proof against buyer's remorse. The broth scalds burnt sugar and resilience searing your gums. Lightning flash, illuminating quillprick marks on the vat's rim. Tally sticks or pagan sigils. The brewer slams the ladle down, spattering your boots. Birmingham merchants pay double for storm-soured malt. You fake a knowing grin. Private vineyards once paid you to sabotage rivals' harvests. These stalks feel lighter than promised, but hunger trumps pride. She gestures to a crumbling kiln behind the vat. Toast a handful post-strain, keeps weevils pious. The advice echoes frescoes you've seen, desert monks roasting locusts. With salvaged grain, you pocket 3 kernels, future bribes for finicky soil. As hail threatens, the daughter presses a resin-sealed pouch against your wrist. Midnight steeped grains doubles your yield for a blood favor. Her breath smells of anise and lies. You decline, unsure whose blood she craves. The brewer cackles, tossing a shriveled apple core into your satchel. For the guilt, she explains too kindly. Twilight rubs charcoal across the sky as you retreat, barley heads bobbing like disapproving judges. Some claim medieval drinkers preferred ale over water for safety, never admitting they craved the buzz. Your thirst agrees, though the cider's ghost still stings your throat. A one-eyed man blocks your path, offering willow switches in exchange for a stalk. Barley makes better dowsing rods than wheat, he insists, wiggling the twigs like mating adders. You trade a single grain, watch him scramble toward the brewer's vat. Let them haggle over divination, you've got drought to outwit. The barley rustles again as you cross the Faire's threshold, its whisper thinner now. Maybe it's thanking you or tallying debts. Either way, it's too late to trade back. Threadbare linen snags your elbow, the spinner's sleeve frayed from a lifetime of untangling threads. She hoists a rush lamp, flax seeds gleaming like insect wings in the greasy light. North-facing rose, or your harvest'll snap like a liar's promise. She rasps, her breath sour, with turnip soup, Flemish linen fetched, 6 sheep per bolt. Even bishops coveted it for altar cloths. You roll a seed between thumb and finger, its shell smooth as a babe's cheek. The spinner's belt jingles with bone needles and rotted hemp, tools of a trade, dying faster than she is. 3 copper bits per scoop, or a lock of your hair. Her gaze lingers on your braid, graying, but still thick. You've heard of spinners demanding keratin payments, horsehair for bowstrings, human tresses for baby swaddles. The air smells of lamp smoke and regret, a combo you're getting used to. She spills seeds into your palm, they clink like miniature coins. Medieval dyers used fermented woad and stale urine, but flax required only patience and curse words. Your last crop failed, young stalks snapped during that freak hailstorm, or was it sabotage? The spinner pokes your wrist with a splintered fingernail. North, facing. Lamplight warps her shadow into a giantess, looming over moth-eaten skeins of yarn. One basket oozes something gelatinous, failed attempts at silkworm cultivation. Historians still argue whether households prized flax more for its thread or its oil. You fake confidence, jiggling the seeds. What if I plant them west? Her cackle draws stares from a passing wool merchant. West-facing flax forgets how to stand tall. She mimes a drooping stalk, wobbling like a drunkard mid-jig. Old wives swore singing to flax at midnight strengthened the fibers, but you can't carry a tune. A child darts past, trailing a kite made of parchment deeds. The spinner seizes your sleeve. Twist the stalks counterclockwise when retting confuses the mildew. Her advice contradicts every farmer you've met, but her calluses outnumber yours tenfold. You haggle, trading a tin thimble and 2 chicken feathers for half a pouch. She knots the payment into her hair, a shabby nest of trinkets and desperation. The Faire's noise fades, replaced by the scritch-scratch of her spindle winding down. Burn candle stubs in the field, moths fear tallow smoke. She spits, narrowly missing your boot. You recall frescoes of flax martyrs, saints strangled by their own shrouds. These seeds feel heavier than they look, tiny anchors for next season's hopes. The lamp sputters, revealing a tattoo on her forearm, a spiral with 13 spokes, miller's marks, pagan glyphs. She yanks her sleeve down too fast. North, she repeats, as if direction could ward off rust and rats. Dampness creeps through your soles, the first warning of dew. You thumb the seeds again, they're colder now. Ever tried singing to them? Her snort answers before words do. Songs won't mend what fools break. A gust extinguishes her lamp, plunging you into vinegar darkness. Her hand grips yours, surprisingly strong. Full moon planting waxing for linen, waning for oil. The wool merchant's torch reappears, illuminating her retreat into the shadows between stalls. Your satchel sags, weighted with barley husks and fresh doubts. 14th century, Flemish weavers dominated markets until the guilds strangled innovation with red tape. You count seeds by touch, 9, 12, 14. No matter, the spinner's gone her warnings, clinging like burrs to your cloak. A drunk stumbles into you, his breath reeking of fermented plums. Linen chafes less than wool. He slurs wise words or liquor-fueled nonsense. You sidestep, wondering if north-facing means true north or the baker's crooked chimney. The seeds murmur as you walk, dry laughter at your expense. Maybe you'll fail, another season of snapped stalks and thin excuses. Or maybe, just maybe, you'll beat the mildew and the merchant's sneers. Either way, the spinner's voice follows, north, facing, unyielding as frost. The drunk's plum stink lingers as you stumble toward a lacquered box, its black gloss swallowing torchlight. A merchant fans dried pods across velvet, each one rattling like a snake's discarded spine. Wind's own orchestra. He purrs, nail-less fingers tapping a brittle husk. It hums, a low C sharp, vibrating your molars. Silk road caravans, smuggled more than spices. Scholars confirm opium poppies, hitched rides in monk sandals. You lift a pod, its contours mimic a human ear. Kwanju fishermen once traded these as currency, 8 pods for a bride's dowry, 20 for a burial shroud. The merchant's robes reek of camphor and long voyages, stitched with what might be Sanskrit or sailor's doodles. 16 silver pennies, he says, too crisp for a man missing 3 teeth. His scale tilts, brass bowls crusted with salt from forgotten ports. Historians still argue whether these pods decorated palaces or guided desert travelers via wind pitch, or just drove rats mad with their buzzing. You huff, 16 pennies could buy a goat, or a winter's worth of lies. He plucks a pod, drops it into your palm. The vibration spreads, a bee's ghost trapped in cellulose. Hang them where drafts dance. They'll sing seasons into your walls. His smile reveals a gold-capped molar out of place among rot. A juggler's torch flares nearby. The sudden light exposes scars on the merchant's neck. Branded or bitten, you've heard tales of Caspian pirates who city folks claim stored treasure maps in seed cavities. The pod's hum intensifies, syncing with your pulse. Dangerous, or just drama for rubes. 14 pennies, and this jar of pickled radishes. Your voice wavers, unsure if radishes hold value here. He probes the jar, sniffing brine. 4th century Persian traders preferred bartering saffron for safflower, not root vegetables. But hunger softens all principles. 15, and a strand of your hair. His gaze flicks to your braid, gray glinting copper in firelight. You snap a thread, regretting each creak of keratin. He weaves it into the lacquer box's hinge, a binding ritual or cheap theater. Pods clatter into your satchel, their song muffled by barley husks. Medieval musicians strung them on gut chords, crude lutes that wailed during storms. Yours might mute mice, or summon something less rodent. The merchant bows, exaggerated like a player in a morality play. Voices erupt at the cider stall. A haggling match turns fist first. You drift away, pressing the satchel to your hip. Wind chases you, plucking at the pods. Like a street urchin, they answer high notes now, piercing as a widow's whistle. Dawn's first blush pales the eastern stalls. Your thumb finds a pod split, seam inside, a seed shaped like a molar. To plant, it risks unknown roots. To discard it invites winter's voiceless grip. The merchant's laughter trails you, a rasping duet with the chiming hall. The apothecary's stall reeks of burned honey, thick enough to coat your molars. You step over a puddle reflecting razor-edged stars, starlight warped by what might be licorice tar or congealed blood. A woman emerges, hooded, her skin mottled like walnut ink on parchment. She slaps 3 speckled eggs onto the counter, so pristine they hurt to look at. With a root, she croaks, a voice like a rusted hinge. Her fingernail splits a seed pod, thorns erupt, snagging your sleeve. Blighted wheat bowed entire villages in 1346. You remember the priest's homily about rotten harvests. These seeds supposedly purge fungal rot. You glance at the eggs. Laid by pullets never mounted, she snaps, preempting your smirk. Farmers once traded virgin eggs as plague talismans, though most just ate them poached. Her demand digs deeper. And hair from a child's first shearing. The lock in your pouch smells of lavender soap, pillaged from a cradle 2 stalls back. She scrutinizes each strand, holding them to a hanging lantern. Wax drips onto her wrist, unflinching. Historians still argue whether virgin eggs meant chaste hens or cooks who abstained from festive vigils. You cough. She glares, your lungs filling with the tang of ironwort and deceit. The thorn pricks your thumb. A bead of blood swells black in the dimness. Blight-resistant crops built empires, or doomed them when wheat stores outlasted common sense. Your pulse throbs where the seed's venom seeps in. Harmless, probably, she pockets your offerings, eggs clacking like dice. From her apron spills a coil of hair, blonde, red raven each tied with colored string. A fringe text claims witherroot thrives near battlefields, fed by decaying marrow. You're no botanist, just desperate enough to risk it. 3 moons to sprout, she warns, watered with dew from a hanged man's boots. Her eye twitches, a tick or silent laugh. You scoop the seeds into a lead vial, heavy as a grave token. The thorns nestle against your hip, promising salvation or sepsis. Laughter erupts at the sausage cart. Someone's ale splashes your boot. The apothecary melts into shadow, taking your hairs and hypothetical morals. You clutch the vial, its chill seeping through wool. Medieval healers swore by weirder cures, goat bile enemas, mumia powder scraped from catacomb skulls. Your blistered thumb itches, a delayed reaction or impending doom. You blame the licorice tar or the memory of a child's curls snipped mid-lullaby. The egg's absence leaves your satchel lighter looser, as though the witherroot already devours ballast. A drunk collapses, vomiting something blue and glittering. You step over him, seeds rattling like teeth in a jar. 3 moons, you'll either kneel in thriving grain or explain to your council why the fields reek of corpses. The thorns press harder, a persistent ache, as dawn stains the horizon the color of a fresh bruise. The drunken man's glitter-speckled vomit stains your boot, a hue better suited to court jesters than fairground mud. You sidestep, only to queue behind 2 women hunched over rye sacks. Their wimples sag dyed indigo at the edges, a shade penitence wore during the Great Famine to signal endurance, like stirring honey into ash. The taller one murmurs, fingering plump grains. Her companion snorts, a sound like wet barley husks. Blame the rain, after the Lambert girl's stillbirth last March. You lean closer, sweat beading under your collar. Miscarriage rains, they call them, showery laments that sweeten crops. Your grandmother swore weepy clouds blessed the soil, though she also believed turnips could predict twins. The shorter midwife palms a kernel, rolls it between thumb and forefinger. 16 bushels from 1 acre, sweeter than confectioner's loaves. Historians still argue whether medieval morning bread contained actual tears or just well-watered yeast. You pretend to examine a sack's stitching, ears straining. Planted mine by the privy, the tall one mutters, where night soil's thickest. Her laugh crackles a parchment-dry chuckle. Crows ate half but the loaves, tasted like redemption. You stifle a snort. Medieval rye sometimes hosted ergot, a toxic mold that caused hallucinations. These women's bread might have sweetened villages or sent them dancing naked through blighted fields. A gust spills grain across your boots. The midwives turn, eyes sharp as scythes. lost traveler. The taller one pockets a fistful of kernels, stained blue from her headscarf. You gesture to the rye, feigning novice curiosity. Seek resilient stock, the shorter snaps, not whatever's peddled here. Their banter resumes, laced with codes. 2 pints of leech mucus, bought Greta's mildew-resistant barley. The tall one smirks, shame about her husband's over-enthusiastic application. You file that under quackery, though last week's goat bile enema vendor did brisk business. A child's cry pierces the haggling. The midwives stiffen, hands diving into aprons. Poor mites, the short one tuts. Cradle seeds won't take without a mother's breath on the first moon. You recall a crumbled manuscript hinting at seedbed rituals, whistling to wheat, singing to spinach. Most scholars dismiss it as whimsy, but your satchel holds violets coaxed from a hummed hymn. The taller midwife grips your wrist, her touch diagnosing calluses. You've cradled dying soil. It's not a question. She spills 5 kernels into your palm, darker than the rest. Plant these where lightning split an oak, and don't insult them with prayers. Her companion hisses, a warning or approval. Rye gossip fades as a merchant shouts about turnips that mimic saints' faces. You pocket the kernels, wrapped in a scrap of wool snatched from a dyer's discard pile. The midwives dissolve into the crowd, arguments about pig-bone fertilizer trailing behind them. Dust sticks to your throat, gritty reminders of the apothecary's lingering ironwort. That witherroot gamble better offset whatever curse these rye seeds carry. You count them again, still 5. Odd number for an even trade. Superstition prickles your neck until a passing juggler tosses a pea pod at your head. Look lively. He crows, already targeting a monk's exposed scalp. The fairground thrums, a living thing digesting hope and husks. You resist licking a kernel, tailies of men, choking on sprouting grain sour your curiosity. Dawn's bruise has yellowed, a healing wound across the sky. A brewer's apprentice stumbles past, reeking of rogue fermentation. His apron bulges with swollen barley sacks, likely stolen. You step aside, kernels pressing against your thigh through the wool. Whether they'll birth sweet bread or ergot-fueled visions matter less than their weight, tangible proof that survival sometimes fits in a closed fist. The sausage seller resumes his ballad about a lovelorn carrot, midwives rye, apothecary thorns, butcher's bone maize. Your satchel sags with contradictions. A passing donkey brays, its saddlebags dripping with clover. You feed it a stolen kernel, because why should humans hog all the recklessness? Shadows shorten as the sun climbs, an indifferent spectator. Somewhere beyond the fair, a field awaits your fumbling hands. You adjust the woolen bundle, seeds nestled like secrets. The midwives' voices echo, lightning split oak. Don't insult them with prayers. You'll need both, and maybe the donkey's clover, to survive what sprouts. Flower motes dance in slatted sunlight. The mill's shadow stretches like a 9th century fraud ledger across your path. Inside, a man coughs, a wheezing rhythm matching the water wheel's creak. His ledger lies open, barley inked neat as monk's script, but the flour clinging to the pages whispers rye chaff. You recognize the scam. Medieval millers often bulked flour with cheaper grains. King Henry II outlawed the practice. Hangings followed, but greed sprouts faster than wheat. The miller's daughter perches on a flour barrel dress patched with sacking. Her eyes dart to a cobwebbed alcove where ledger pages curl like dead leaves, seeking honest measure. She smirks, nodding at her father's hunched back. We trade in weight, not virtue. The miller slams the ledger shut, pages erupting in a pale cloud. Historians still argue whether fraud flour caused the 1321 St. Medard riots, or just cheap ale. Ales for fools. The miller spits, a brown arc hitting the water wheel. Wheat's the real coin. His thumb digs into your palm during the handshake, testing for farmer's calluses. You counter with a silver denier, shaved edges catching the light. His daughter snorts. That'll buy you moldy bran. Something nudges your boot, a burlap bundle under the barrel. The girl's foot retreats slow as a snail's horn. You crouch, pretending to examine a mouse-gnashed sack. Her whisper barely stirs the dust. Oats from a heretic's grave, stolen during the new moon. The miller bellows for her voice cracking like stale bread. She slips you the seeds, cool as grave soil, and resumes tending the millstone. The oats rattle in their pouch kernels, dented where roots breached the burial shroud. Heretics' graves were salted, you've heard, but maybe this crop thrives on curses. The girl mouths, don't plant near church land, before vanishing into flower haze. Outside, a donkey brays, its clover breath mingling with the mill's damp rot. You count the oats again, 13. Unlucky number for unholy seeds. A juggler's abandoned pea-pod crunches underfoot, reminder of morning's wry gamble. Survival's becoming a patchwork of stolen chances, midwives, kernels, a dead man's oats, smuggled under a miller's nose. Sunlight glares off the water wheel, its endless turn a taunt. You pocket the seeds, their weight negligible compared to the ledger's lies. Let historians parse frauds and riots. Your field won't care if its oats grew on a heretic's bones, only that they endure. The mill's grit lingers under your nails as you follow a rivulet of blue runoff, its chemical tang stinging like regret. Salt-crusted boots mark the path to a sagging tent, its hemp walls stained the color of drowned skies. Inside, a woman stirs a copper vat, wrists mottled with tidal patterns. She glances up, eyes reflecting oceans you've never sailed. Careful, she rasps, voice weathered by brine. Indigo stains deeper than sin. Your fingertips graze a seed pod, its surface pocked like moonrock. True indigo seeds were rarer than sapphires in 12th century Europe, traded only through Venetian blind auctions. Most dyers settled for woads, murky greens, and peasant stink. She slops a ladle of dye, liquid rippling midnight, 4 parts estuary mud, 1 part gull's breath. a joke. Her face stays grave. The vat fumes curl your throat, a cocktail of fermented urine and crushed shells. Dyers once tested vat's strength by floating eggs. If the yolk sank, the batch was cursed. You gag, earnings the ghost of a smirk from her. Your soil has limestone. She slams the ladle down, blue droplets scarring the table. No limestone, no blue. You nod, remembering chalk cliffs north of your scorched fields. She bundles seeds in a fish skin pouch, still glistening with bog slime. Historians still argue whether Saint Hildegard's heavenly azure in her manuscripts came from indigo or just wishful thinking. A toddler scrambles under the table, laughing as his hair drinks the blue mist. The dyer cuffs his ear, gentle as a tide pulling sand. Third son, she mutters. Meant for the church, if the dye doesn't claim him first. You pocket the seeds, their fishy reek, blending with the mill's flour dust, still coating your clothes. She grabs your wrist, staining it violets. Plant them where salt and fresh meet, or they'll forget how to sing. Outside, a salt peddler's cart jingles past, its load destined for pork barrels and wealthier dyers. Your indigo might never dress a bishop's robes, but it could stain 100 peasant tunics. Rebellion wears many colors. The toddler offers a half-dyed rag doll, its smile twisted by vat chemicals. You trade a dented button, watching blue bloom across his palm like a tiny, perfect bruise. Damp birch bark clings to your palm as you exit the dye tent, its papery scent a relief from the indigo's urine sting. A cluster of women huddle ahead, their hoods angled like crow beaks. No voices pierce the fog, just fingers tracing symbols on bark strips. The widow's auction thrives in daylight's absences. You mimic their stance, faux nonchalance, while eyeing the birch scrolls pegged to a yew branch. Knots denote bitters, crescents for counteroffers, all drawn with beet juice that darkens with time. Medieval merchants used beet stains as temporary ledgers, their sweetness attracting ledger mites that ate the evidence by dawn. A hand darts out middle-aged, missing a pinky knuckle, etching 3 vertical lines over your crescent mark. The peas in question sit in a willow basket, pale green and unremarkable. Their claim, climbing without poles, defying nature like ale that never sours. A widow's hood slips, revealing a scar where her ear should have been. Gossip claims she buried her husband's ledger with him, its pages stuffed in his throat. You press a thumb into the bark, deepening your mark. A girl of maybe 12 tugs your sleeve, smeared beet juice on her chin like berry blood. She mouths North Plot and flashes 5 fingers. Bribery smells like fermented honey and childish desperation. Historians still argue whether silent auctions evolved from trade among the illiterate or from wives dodging their husbands' ledgers. You shake your head. She spits at your boots, missing by design. The widow uncurls a taproot, gnarled as an old man's finger. Bitters lean in reading growth rings like manuscript margins. Modern farmers swear planting peas during a crescent moon, boosts yields. Medieval ones feared lunar curves, encouraged wayward vines. Your rival bitter, a nun with dirt-caked hems, shoves a bark strip into your hand. It reads, "Ask the baker's boy about rye." Doubt creeps in like rot through a grain store. Those peas could anchor your fields or strangle neighboring crops in their sleep. You scratch a final bid, half your remaining silver buttons. The widow snaps the taproot, sap oozing black. She points to you. The nun's nostrils flare her breath, clouding the space between insults and prayer. The widow drops peas into your outstretched hand, their dull shells warm as living things. You count 7. The 12th century Persian text Al-Falaha mentions self-climbing legumes, but cautions they provoke flatulence in oxen. A fair trade. As you retreat, beet juice drying to burgundy, the girl reappears. She drops a single pea into your pocket, stolen or gifted. Her grin says both. The nun's warning nags, but hunger for innovation drowns caution. You'll plant 4 at the field's edge, 3 under your mother's kitchen window. Let the tavern drunks accuse the moon of sabotage when the vines ascend. Rain begins gentle at first, flushing beet stains into the mud. Someone behind you mutters about ungodly sprouts. You tighten your grip on the peas, their potential thrumming like a second pulse. The baker's boy winks as you pass, flour-dusted hands clutching rye loaves and unspoken truths. Rain-slick cobbles guide you toward bleeding chaos. A woolen tide spilling between stalls. The shepherd's crook hooks your sleeve, its curve polished by decades of redirecting wayward lambs. Salt, he grunts, a command, not a request. His flock mills behind a hurdle fence, fennel stalks woven through the wattle. Medieval herders swore by fennel's wolf-repelling stink, though modern tests show wolves just prefer mutton over licorice breath. You dig a palm-sized salt cake from your satchel, its edges softened by yesterday's drizzle. The shepherd sniffs it, nods, and spills seeds into your hand. Fennel grains skitter like insect carapaces, their aroma sharp enough to sting your sinuses. The shepherd mimes planting motions, thumb to earth, palm upturned. East slope, he growls, where crows gather. His thumbnail gleams, frost white from years of salting, feed to stop sheep bloating. A ewe rams the fence, demanding attention, her udder swollen with milk that smells. Wrong. You pocket the seeds for spring planting. For tonight. He jerks his chin toward the taverns. Sprinkle M in ale drowns the stink of sour milk. Historians still argue whether fennel masked spoiled provisions or just made peasants too drunk to care. You chuckle, but he doesn't. His gaze flicks to the western tree line, where shadows pool like spilled ink. The flock surges, a wave of panic. No wolves howl, yet every sheep's head jerks northward. The shepherd spits a fennel seed. It cracks between his teeth. They smell the moon's hunger, he mutters. Science scoffs, but medieval stock records show unexplained lamb losses spiked during full moons. Coincidence? Maybe. You shiver anyway. He tosses a withered stalk at your feet. chew it, keeps night visions thin. The fibers splinter between your molars, an explosion of bitterness. Your tongue goes numb. The shepherd's laugh rasps like a saw through green wood. Eye burns off the cowardice too. Distant thunder rumbles, or is that a cart rolling over bridge planks? You can't tell. The flock stills, collective breath held. Blue twilight clings to the fennel in your hand, its ridges catching the last light. You trade 2 more salt cakes for a threadbare pouch. Laced with wolfsbane, he whispers, though the label's ink has blurred beyond reading. As you leave, seeds clattering against your thigh, the baker's boy sprints past. His rye loaf tumbles into the mud. Neither of you stoops to retrieve it. The tavern doors swing open, spilling lute screech and liquor scent. You press a fennel seed to your tongue, its sweetness curdling into something medicinal. Tonight, the ale will taste safer. Tomorrow, the shepherd's warning gnaws at you. You count seeds by a tavern window, 37 licorice promises. Outside, hoofbeats. A black colt gallops riderless through the square, its flanks streaked with sweat or creek water. Coincidence. Always coincidence. You swallow 3 more seeds. The barkeep slides you a tankard, stinkless, somehow. Maybe the fennel works. Maybe your nose has died. Either way, the milk curdles beautifully in your cup. The tavern's warmth clings like a jealous lover as you step into the pumpkin-stained dusk. Near the smithy's cooling forge, a stall glints with polished gears. Pocket watches dangle like copper fruit, each ticking louder than a woodpecker on ale. The clockmaker's apron bulges with seed pouches, stained by something oily and bright. His finger points. A sprung hinge juts from his cuff. Ever seen a gourd tell time? Before you answer, he slams a pumpkin on the counter. Its stem aligns perfectly with a sundial carved into the rind. Blade-thin shadows marking seasons. Medieval tinkerers, often moonlighted as agricultural consultants, though guild records omit their pumpkin obsessions. You lean closer, sniffing, half expecting engine grease. The scent, cinnamon and wet metal. His thumb traces the pumpkin's equatorial groove. Wind the key here daily at dawn. Harvest when the 3rd gearsong ends. You blink. Gearsong. He yanks a lever on the pumpkin's underside. Tiny cogs whir playing a tinny rendition of Greensleeves. It's absurd. It's mesmerizing. It's possibly the first ever singing vegetable. Clocks need chimes, why not crops? His wink suggests he's either a genius or 3 sandwiches short of a picnic. The pumpkin's innards glint, brass components replacing seeds. My grandfather's design, stolen from a monastery's water clock. Historians still argue whether medieval horologists collaborated with farmers or just pawned broken gadgets as agricultural aids. You prod the pumpkin. It emits a defensive honk. The clockmaker slaps your hand away. No touchy. The germination sequence is temperamental. He shoves a seed pouch at you. Each seed wears a microscopic copper ring, like a tiny planetary gear. Plant them moon phase. but only during a crow's third caw. His breath smells of solder and anise. You glance around. No one else sees the madness, just a goat chewing on a sundial. What if crows don't caw thrice? Then you'll get pumpkins, but they'll be emotionally unfulfilled. He mimes a sagging vegetable with jazz hands. It's weirdly persuasive. You count out tarnished coins, their faces worn smooth by a century of bad bets. The clockmaker pockets them, then freezes. Wait, you do own a soil crank, yes. A what? He groans, ducking under the stall to retrieve a corroded tool. No extra charge, today only. The crank's handle bears teeth, marks, possibly from someone testing its durability. Or sanity. You spin the mechanism. It screams like a stepped-on ermine. The nearby blacksmith pauses, crosses himself, and returns to hammering. As you leave, seed pouch clinking with faux clockwork, a crash erupts behind you. Two novices sprint past, dragging a wagon load of escaped melons. The clockmaker shouts at their fleeing backs. Amateurs, true produce, respects both time and torque. Nightfall licks the fairgrounds, lamplight pooling around your new investment. You squat by a drainage ditch, the crank gleaming in one hand. A crow mutters overhead once, twice. You hold your breath. The third caw never comes, just a disgruntled hiccup. Close enough. You bury the first seed, copper ring glinting like a last shred of reason. The soil twitches. Or maybe you twitched. Either way, the clockmaker's laughter echoes from the tavern. You hope it's the cider. You hope it's not the pumpkins plotting. The soil still hums from your clockwork planting, a vibration between prayer and indigestion. You wipe copper, grit on your trousers, staring at the ditch. Lamplight flickers, guiding you past ale-stained cobbles toward vespers chimes. A cloaked figure kneels by the tavern's rain barrel, her wimple glowing bone-white. The apron beneath, smudged with crescent-shaped stains. She doesn't look up, but slides a birch bark packet across the stones. Inside, seeds striped like tiger pelts dulled by decades, or perhaps sacrilege, from St. Hilarion's garden, saved when the frostbit bishop called our melons heresy. Her voice rasps, a parchment page torn mid-sentence. Monasteries often preserved rare crops during disasters, like the Lisbon quake of 1531. These seeds, smuggled in a psalm book's spine, now pressed into your palm. The nun's thumb brushes your wrist, chapped by decades of scrubbing altar steps. They need 3 things. She counts on rope-burned fingers. Well water drawn by left-handed virgins, moonlight strained through an oak sieve, and her pause stretches a drawn bowstring. A drop of mead made from hives, blessed during eclipse. You snort. Got any handy? Her smile cracks like thin ice. A vial appears, honey-thick liquid sloshing inside. Swiped from the abbot's private stock 5 winters back. Scholars still debate whether medieval monks spiked sacraments with hallucinogens, but that smell, pure fermentation. You pocket the vial, its glass warm as a lie. Why risk saving melons? Her gaze darts to the tavern's second-story window. Faint lute music drifts down. The bishop claimed their curves, tempted novices. Fools, she spits, a seed-sized divot forms in the mud. True sins letting knowledge rot. The packet rustles, a striped seed escapes, rolling toward the rain barrel. You lun, striking your knee on a cobblestone. The nun hisses, a sound usually reserved for sermon interruptions. Faster. They'll sprout legs if they hit water. You pin the fugitive seed. It squirms like a live ember. When monasteries burned, some say crops rooted themselves in crypts, waiting for quieter centuries. You cradle the seed, its stripes pulse faintly. No poles, no stakes, she whispers. These climb whatever stands still. A donkey brays, you both jump. She presses a birchbark map into your hand. Dots mark forbidden planting sites. Avoid crossroads and burial mounds. And let me guess, picnic areas. Her frown could curdle milk, places where vows were broken. The map crinkles, a tiny flask tied to its edge sloshes. For the soil, you uncork it, reeking of iron and bergamot. Trading a rusted spoon and 2 buttons, you leave her chanting over the seeds. The tavern's shadow swallows her by the 3rd psalm. Your satchel now holds contraband and a sticky suspicion. That mead vial, definitely stolen mid-mass, you crouch behind a dye merchant's cart, purple runoff staining your boots. The first seed sinks into mud, liberally doused in holy hooch. Nothing happens. Then a vine whips upward, coiling the cart's axle like a serpent. Blossoms burst, golden and audacious, reeking of overripe secrets. The nun's laughter echoes from nowhere or everywhere. You sprint before the merchant notices his new decorations. By dawn, the vine will tower. By harvest, might taste like redemption or get you excommunicated. Worth it for fruit that outlives frost and bishops. The forge's heat slaps your face, a lazy relative of hell's own hearth. You squint past smoke. Blacksmiths were medieval docks, mending plows and setting bones in equal measure. Anvil sparks dance with your stolen melon vine's pollen, a light show for the damned. His apron's scorch marks form constellations. Orion's belt is definitely a horseshoe. He nods at your stained hands, dye merchant's purple still under your nails, and slams a glowing ingot. Came for the fussy wheat right. The words rumble like coals in a bellows. You blink, the kind that eats fire. Better. He plunges the red-hot metal into a trough. Hissing steam erases his face. These grains, he kicks a clay urn roasted in my forge last drought. Archaeologists found charred seeds in 12th century Yorkshire. Kilns proof of proto-panic farming. You scoop a handful. They radiate warmth, tiny suns captured in calloused palms. Traded 3 sickles last week for a sack. He spits. The saliva sizzles on the anvil. Plant M where wildfires kissed the earth. His laugh smells of burnt barley, or your neighbor's cursed fireplace. The grains shift, rolling toward your sleeves sweat. They'll grow in ash, thrive in it. He slings a ladle of molten iron. The flicker lights his grin. Saw a stalk once, punching through a charcoal pit. Tall as a gallows. Forge-blistered wheat became tavern tailies, whispered by drunkards who swore embers glowed in the bread. You pocket a dozen seeds, they whisper against the stolen melon vial. Payment. He eyes your belt, the buckle. You grasp the tarnished brass, last relic of a dead man's pilgrimage. His tongs snap impatiently. Behind him, shriveled cornstalks frame a scarred plot. Someone tested the wheat here, blackened stubs claw at the air. You unbuckle cool metal, meets his soot-cracked palm. Should I stomp the seeds into cinders? He growls. Singe M with a candle if you're delicate. His apprentice drags a sack of slag. Each clink sounds like teeth. And piss on M at dawn. Charming. Fertilizer's fertilizer. He slams the furnace door, your shadow shrivels on the wall. Historians still argue whether peasants actually followed these recipes or just enjoyed messing with scribes. The grains prickle your hip, impatient. At the smithy's edge, a failed experiment smolders. Wheat stalks fused with nail fragments, metallic thorns curving toward the sun. You snap one. It bleeds sticky sap that smells of burnt honey. The smith's laugh follows you plant south side, or they'll nibble your cabbages. Dusk finds you knee-deep in last year's bonfire pit. Ash coats your tongue. It tastes like borrowed time. Each seed hits the gray powder with a toasted click. You dribble mead stolen from a nun over the mound, because why not? The soil bubbles. By midnight, green threads smoke upwards, edges glowing like banked coals. They twine around your walking stick, branding it with spiral scars. When you snap a leaf, the sound echoes a hammer strike. Somewhere the smith bellows approval, or maybe it's just tinnitus from the forge. You leave before dawn, ash wheat rustling climate-resistant insults at the sleeping crops. Your belt sags, but the loss feels lighter than expected. Hunger Games, Medieval Edition, might favor those who chew fire. The road curves, your shadow stretches, a scarecrow fused with cinders. Somewhere ahead, bridges need crossing, strangers offer dusk-drowned seeds. For now, the wheat sways a charcoal heartbeat under cracked soil. It remembers fire and waits. The road's dust sticks to your ash-stained boots. Each step squeaks like a mouse negotiating with a greased trap. A giggle cuts through the willow branches, high-pitched and sticky with missing teeth. A grubby palm thrusts into your path, dirt caked under nails that haven't seen a wash basin in weeks. 3 shriveled pips glisten in her grip, apple seeds dark as dried blood. From the Duke's own table, she whispers, though her grin suggests the Duke didn't offer them. Crossroads held mystic weight in medieval Europe. Half the villagers you've met swear they're portals. The other half just piss there. You lean down, your shadow merges with hers. Stole them mid-chew, did you? She shrugs. A beetle falls from her braid. His cheeks puffed like a pompous squirrel. Historians still argue whether noble feasts actually had core basins for discarding apple seeds, or if that's just tavern talk from jealous peasants. The pips smell faintly of cinnamon and spite. What's the trick? You flick one. It leaves a rusty smudge. Do I plant them in a bishop's beard? Water them with stolen ale? East of the crossroads, her upturned nose wrinkles, blood-red skin sweeter than a widow's forgiveness. She leans closer, her breath smells of stolen honeycakes, but only if you spit 3 times at the moon. You squint, current moon or next full one. She giggles again, the sound of a leaky bellows. Behind her, a willow branch cracks. Someone's watching from the thicket, boot prints too large for a child's conspirator. You pocket the seeds, they nestle against the nun's mead vial with a clink. Payment. Her eyes dart to your satchel. The blacksmith's wheat. A breeze stirs the ash still clinging to your clothes. 1 grain. 2. She stomps, dust plumes around her ankles. Or I'll tell the tanner where you hid his missing shears. You surrender 2 ember-brined kernels, their heat vanishes into her fist. She scurries off, a corncrake call answering her whistle. The thicket rustles, you catch a flash of livery, too fine for farmhands. Duke's men, seed enforcers. You trudge east, crossroads ahead marked by a nail-studded post. Offerings dangle from its splinters, a dead crow, a braid of barley, a child's left shoe. Apples symbolized status in muddy peasant life. Owning an orchard meant you could afford blisters that weren't from hoeing. You kneel where the paths intersect, the soil's softer here, chewed up by cartwheels and doubt. 3 pips slide into the earth, each spat on with performative gusto. Your 3rd spit hits a worm. It writhes like a cursed violin string. Apologies, you mutter. Dusk bleeds across the fields. Shadows stretch their legs after a long day of crouching. You're halfway to the next village when the giggles resume, echoing from every hollow tree. The pips pulse in your pocket, or maybe that's just your hip complaining about the nun's mead. By midnight, you're carving a rabbit snare beneath an oak. Something glints in the roots, a tiny glass vial capped with silver. Inside, 3 fresh apple pips, plumper than yours, gleaming like candied murder. Around the neck, a thread stained fox red. The crossroads hum behind you, a low, hungry sound. You bury the vial without breaking the seal. Some gifts thrash harder than others. Above, the moon watches full and smug as a duke's larder. When the first shoot erupts at dawn, it's the crimson of a fresh brand. Leaves curl like aristocratic fingers, snatching sunlight from the dandelions. Your spit glistens on the stem, or is that sap? The tree will take decades to fruit, but you'll long be bones by then. A whisper follows you down the road, east of the crossroads. You check your satchel. The original pips still sleep in their cloth. That night, by a poacher's fire, you swear the flames taste like stolen apples. Morning finds a blot on your map, the Duke's orchard circled in what looks like berry juice. Coincidence or a child's revenge? You scratch it out, the paper tears like rotted linen. Some seeds grow faster in the mind than in soil. The road ahead smells of rain and unresolved plotlines. The bakery's chimney belches smoke that smells like burnt promises. Your empty stomach churns agreement. Inside, a hollowed gourd throbs on the counter, its sourdough innards bubbling like a sleeping dragon's breath. A flour-caked baker blocks your view, his apron stained with what you hope is mulberry juice. Careful, traveler. He taps the gourd, it gurgles. This starter ate 3 taxmen last winter. Historians still argue whether medieval bread taxes applied to loaves baked with rebellious cultures. Most just hid their rye in oat sacks. You lean closer. The yeast punch smells like defiance and overripe plums. Wild rye spores swirl in the goo, each one a tiny anarchist. Does it actually rise under inspection? His chuckle flings dough flakes into your hair. Rise. It'll levitate straight to heaven if the priests don't throttle it first. Bread ovens were communal property in most villages. But this man's smirk suggests he's dug a private hole behind the privy. The starter erupts. A blob plops onto your boot. It seethes, digesting the leather's edge. Charming, 56 generations old. He wipes his nose with a dough hook. Grandma smuggled it from Bohemia in her, let me guess, her underwear. Close. Hemorrhoid pillow. Quirky fact, medieval yeast cultures often traveled in hollowed fruits. Gourds were for amateurs. You eye the gourd's pockmarks, definitely not fruit-related. A muffled clang echoes outside, bayonet on shield. The baker freezes, his smile now a grimace. Taxmen's horses hate oat chaff, but love the scent of unregistered carbohydrates. You slap a palm on the counter sticky. What's the trade? His gaze darts to your satchel. The drowned village's rice, 2 grains, half the gourd. The starter belches. A waft of alcohol stings your eyes. 3 grains, and you teach me the feeding ritual. Deal. He licks dough off his wedding ring, tarnished from needing vengeance. The rice grains vanish into his sleeve, quicker than a cardinal's conscience. Feeding the beast requires midnight whispers and stolen barley malt. He demonstrates by humming a tavern ditty. The starter surges, creeping toward a loaf like a drunken conqueror. Keep it angry, he advises. Complacent yeast makes bread even taxmen could stomach. Outside, hooves slow by the dung heap. You clutch the gourd, its pulse syncing with your runaway heartbeat. The baker shoves you toward a flower shoot, cold as a tithe collector's smile. You emerge into a pigpen, swine snuffling at your yeast-smeared knees. The gourd thrums alive and irate. Dawn streaks the sky, the road waits hungry. By noon, the starter's song drowns out your stomach's complaints. Historians never mention this, the way rebellion ferments, quiet and inevitable in the belly of a borrowed gourd. When you finally bake a loaf at dusk, it erupts golden and shrieking steam. The first bite tastes like loopholes and second chances. You leave crumbs at a crossroads, an offering or a trap, the starter decides. Moonlight reveals the baker's final trick. Carved inside the gourd's lid, a single word: resist. The road ahead smells of burnt crust and unresolved audacity. Marsh mud sucks at your boots, each step a quarrel between earth and ambition. The levee keeper's orphan perches on a rotting pew, half submerged, her hair green with duckweed. She spins a soaked psalm book on one finger. The pages flutter like dying carp. They said you'd come. Her voice cracks, a brook choking on pebbles. Bring anything sharp. You blink. No. She shrugs, drops the book. It sinks. Good. Blades make the grains nervous. Historians agree medieval marshes hid fugitive crops, salt-tolerant barley in Suffolk, rye in Flemish bogs, but church rice, that's new. She unveils the pouch, its linen bloated like drowned skin. The grains inside glow faintly, or maybe that's algae. 16 years underwater, she murmurs. Salvation loves a good soak. The village steeple pokes through the muck, a rotten fingernail scratching the sky. You reach, she snatches the pouch back. First, a story. How the baker's rebellion ended. He's free. The starter less so. She flicks a leech off her ankle. Stories rot quicker here. Tell it to the rice instead. Quirky bit, flooded French villages supposedly planted seeds in baptismal fonts, anoints them against blight. You eye the submerged altar, its chalice full of tadpoles. The rice whispers when poured into your palm, or maybe that's just pouch mold singing. They'll grow in salt. Grow. They'll thrive. Guilt's the real poison. She nods to the marshes. Saints drowned here. Their bones still argue with the catfish. Historians still debate whether drowned lands were accidents or deliberate sacrifices to outwit Taxmen's granary surveys. Frogs croak the hour you're late. Her price, a button from your cuff, the one traded weeks back for speckled beans. It's seen enough sunlight, she insists. The rice craves shadows. Deal struck. The grains slip into your satchel, nestling against the baker's gourd. Their combined weight feels like heresy, and hope elbowing for space. She wades away, her song merging with the marsh's wet gasps. Plant them where the soil remembers drowning, but only after the crows repent. Twilight bends, the air salty bitter, like unshed tears. You pocket a marsh pebble smooth as a communion wafer and turn east. Behind you bubbles rise where the psalm book sank. One pops your name slurred in swamp breath. The rice hums. The road ahead smells of silt and unsolved riddles. The road's mud crusts to dust under your soles, a welcome change from the swamp's greedy embrace. Up ahead, a lyre's plucked string hangs in the air, or maybe it's just a trick of the breeze. You follow the sound to a fire pit, its embers cradling a minstrel's feet. His lute wears more patches than your cloak, fractured wood bound with twine and tattered sheet music. Careful, he strums a dissonant chord. Seeds spill from his instrument's sound hole. Parsley's shy, it flees flat notes. Historians confirm medieval minstrels doubled as herbalists, their ballads smuggling remedies past church censors. But this, his palm opens, a single green seed glistens, its surface etched with staff lines. You reach, he snaps his fingers. First, a trade. Something that's hummed in the dark. The marsh pebble weighs heavy in your pocket. He seizes it, licks the surface, grins. Ah, a salmeter. Perfect. He tucks it into his lute, seeds cascade like eighth notes. Crushed parsley drifts from his sleeves, the scent sharp and herbaceous, with an afterwhiff of rosin. Listen close. His planting chant weaves through a G minor scale, each word sprouting triplets. Sow at moonrise, sing this nightly harvest when the stems croak A sharp. Quirky fact, some Tudor gardeners buried broken mandolins with herb seeds, claiming the wood taught them rhythm. You eye his cracked lute, half expect roots to curl from its frets. A leaf brushes your wrist, it chimes like a glass harmonica. There, singing. Nah, he wipes his nose on a seed pouch. That's the wind. Or your ears finally waking up. Historians still argue whether troubadour scores contained encrypted farming lore or just bad poetry. His smirk suggests both. Firelight dies, the seeds in your palm pulse once, a submarine green. He leans close, ale and anise on his breath. Skip the chorus, parsley hates repetition. And whatever you do, a donkey brays in the distance. He jumps, scattering 3 seeds into ash. Bah, ought to charge you double now. He salvages 2 spits on the third. That one's cursed anyway. Made it during a hailstorm. The recipe, apparently involving goat spit and a love sonnet's crumpled draft. You pocket the survivors. Their papery husks rasp against the damp rice pouch, an off-key duet. The minstrel resumes playing a tune that digs into your molars. One last tip. His pick snags a string. If the leaves scream run, dawn threatens streaks of yolk yellow, smudging the horizon. You walk backward from his fire, seeds buzzing like beehives in your satchel. His final chord hangs in the air, mocking the night's silence. Parsley rustles in time with your steps. Or maybe you're just swaying. An owl hoots, its cry bending into a perfect middle C. The road ahead smells of lyre strings and indecision. Footsteps crunch behind you, not the minstrel's shuffle, but boots grinding gravel to powder. A shadow stretches long across the path, tower silhouette, swallowing the last stars. You freeze as a halberd's blade taps your shoulder. Predawns for thieves and ghosts. The night watchman's voice rasps, a hinge needing oil. Which are you? His lantern swings. Its light catches fist-sized buds, coiled like sleeping bats on his belt. Moonflowers, thick petals sealed with waxy resin. Their stems ooze sap that darkens his glove, staining the leather beetle black. Historians note night witchmen, often moonlighted as herbalists, those blooms. Their nectar once coated arrowheads to blunt invaders' steel. You nod to his sword, its edge nicked from parrying nothing but midnight breezes, seeking trade, not trouble. He snorts, a wet sound that startles an owl. Trouble's cheaper. One bud unfurls, revealing veined petals shimmering like quicksilver. The stench hits rotting plums and burnt hair. His free hand extends palm up. Coins useless here. Give me. The pause stretches a cat toying with a mouse. Something that's tasted moonlight. Your satchel offers lamplight-stained oat husks, relics of the miller's heist. He throws them to the dirt. Amateur hour. The halberd twitches, a silent threat. Quick think, the widow's crescent-marked Pinot. Then you remember the nun's honey-blessed melon seeds, their casings still sticky with mead. He plucks one, holds it to the lantern. The seed glistens, a tiny amber planet. Better. 2 moonflower pods drop into your palm, cold as grave soil. Their stems prickle tiny barbs, catching your skin. Quirky medieval hack, some guards rub the sap on door hinges to deter squealing spies. Doesn't work, but smells worse than a tannery. Plant M where torches never fade. He leans in ale breath and mildew. Tower shadows, jailhouse windows, gallows yards. A barbed stem draws blood from your thumb. The sap sizzles as it meets iron-red drops. Historians still argue whether moonflowers dulled blades through chemistry or sheer psychological terror. Pridon's silence thickens, your breath visible now. He pockets the melon seed, grinds it between molars. Break the vow and they'll scream. Vow. The halberd swings, its shadow slices a birch trunk. Name the hour. What? When silence ends, choose. Your throat tightens. Cockcrow, gutless. He spits, the globule ignites midair. A tiny firefly snuffed by mud. High noon. Speak before then, the roots'll strangle your cabbage patch. Deal. The pods squirm, living things, resisting their wax coffin. You stash them beside the minstrel's cursed parsley, an orchestra of trouble brewing. The night watchman retreats his lantern, swaying like a pendulum, counting down to daylight. Something drips from the pods, a viscous bead that etches a smoking divot in the road. You walk faster, the guard towers, shadow clinging like sap. 3 more hours till dawn, the moonflowers pulse, each throb syncing with your heartbeat. At the crossroads, a wet crunch. One pod has burst, revealing a bud the color of a fresh bruise. It whispers, a sound like wet parchment tearing. You recoil, but the noise has already coiled around your ribs. The other pod remains sealed its surface, frosted with dew or hoarfrost. Pre-dawn wind carries the minstrel's final chord, now warped, a drunken wail slicing through the chill. A bell tolls, once iron tongue vibrating in the dark. The moonflower's sap hardens, amber trapping your thumbprint for eternity. Somewhere, a blacksmith's hammer strikes an anvil, or maybe it's just your pulse. The road ahead smells of guard tower moss and half-kept promises. The tannery's stench hits before you see it, vinegar-sharp bile and rotting hides. You're downwind, no escape, as the reek seeps into your hair. A hunched figure stirs a vat, its contents bubbling like diseased broth. Lost, the tanner's voice cracks, leather left too long in sun. Her apron's stained ochre brown, or is that centuries of filth? She lifts a bladdernut seed on a grimy string, its shell waxy, translucent. 1 week buried in ox bile, her nail blackened taps the pod. Leather softens if you stomach the stench. A rat scurries from her sleeve, its fur matted with unknown sludge. Medieval tanners used human urine for softening hides, a fact your nose now tragically confirms. You gesture to the seed, careful not to touch. Proof. She grins, 3 teeth left all amber. With a flick, she flings bile droplets at your boot. The leather hisses, softening instantly your toe, now perilously close to naked. Queen's gloves demand sacrifice. Her laugh echoes, a death-writ must, taught her cadence. The price. Fetching ox bile from the slaughterhouse uphill. You gag at the memory, blood-slick floors, entrails steaming in winter air. But that nun's melon seed still burns your palm, payments due at dawn. Bladdernut saps a quirky secret, reacts violently with bile, a tantrum that tenderizes hide. Practical. Maybe. Worth inhaling putrid fumes for hours. Historians still argue whether tanners believed their methods or just enjoyed torturing apprentices. You return jug sloshing, stomach churning. The tancer sniffs, approving. Bury it west of the cesspit. She drops 2 seeds into your palm, their surfaces slick alien. Moonrise tonight. Dig at dawn. A child's wail cuts through tannery stench, a boy trapped under a falling hide. You lunge, hauling him free, his tunic now stained forever. The tanner shrugs, tossing him a bladdernut like a dog treats. Wash that in lye, or wear the stink till marriage. You pocket the seeds, their coating already eating through your linen pouch. The tanner stirs her vat, humming, as you retreat, halfway up the hill, a wet pop. 1 seed has dissolved, revealing a larval core writhing. You fling it into bracken, the vegetation, wilting on contact. The survivors sealed tight, its wax shell, sweating conspiracy. Dawn's first light creeps, your fingers numb around the shovel. The cesspit's edge squelches, promising dysentery or worse. Bile jug emptied, seeds buried, you pack soil like a grave robber, hiding evidence. The tanner watches from her doorway, raccoon-eyed, sipping something from a hollowed hoof. 3 crows land pecking at disturbed earth. 1 seizes a seed, flies off, only to drop it midair. The pod bursts, spewing green mist. Birds spiral, cawing discordant hymns, before collapsing into rhubarb thickets. You make the sign of the wheel, harvest prayers, feeling suddenly flimsy. Back at camp, your hands reek of bile and betrayal. The widow's pea tendril brushes your wrist, recoiling. Even your shadow seems thinner tainted. But the promise lingers, gloves so supple they'd shame a cathedral altar cloth. Lace cuffs, silver thread embroidery, maybe pearl buttons. A queen's mercy might overlook their aromatic heritage. The sun climbs, stirring bladdernut enzymes underground. By noon, the soil bulges, a pregnant mound breathing in gasps. You walk away. Some secrets need darkness, not witnesses. Let the earth gulp its bile-soaked prize, and may the gloves be worth every wretch. The goldsmith's stall glints, a vulgar display of sun-caught lies. Your boots still reek of bile, bladdernut stench clings like jealous fog. He arranges millet stalks, each head dipped in pyrite dust. Fool's gold for smart farmers. His grin's a sickle sharp enough to harvest hope. 14th century Asirs tested metals with touchstones. You recall this through the stink. This man's no guild master, just tin charisma and moth-eaten velvet. He plucks a stalk, flakes spray like gilt dandruff. True worth's in the stalk. Snap, fibrous pith reveals gold-streaked marrow. A dead cricket tumbles out, its legs stiff in mid-scuttle. Plant near iron soil. His signet ring catches light, 7 gemstones, 7 dead wives. Harvest under blood moon, sheaves will clang like swords. Historians still argue whether gilded seeds duped desperate farmers or honored crop alchemy. Your thumb rubs, pyrite grit its stains like counterfeit ambition. 3 copper coins buy a sack of folly. His laughter chases you, a jingling purse of scorn. Past the onion carts, a dyer mutters about mad alchemists. They buried millet with gold shavings, harvested stalks that screamed when cut. You pray that's metaphor, not horticulture. Dusk spills the seeds across a rain-slick wall fragment. They gleam taunting fireflies as wind steals 5 grains east. Beetles haul one, underground its gilding fading like old sin. The survivors murmur dice in a drunkard's cup. Sow them, risk thin harvests, spurn them, forsake your land's silent plea. You choose a flint-streaked slope, buried iron nails as offerings. First seed drops, a pyrite jade dives, snatching it mid-fall. Its dung will glitter, some future soul's cursed discovery. Moonrise, the goldsmith's chuckle lives in every rustling leaf. Dawn's concern, tonight your spade commits to gilded uncertainty. You find the ferryman where reeds choke the bank, his skiff half swallowed by silt. No coins here, payments a story spun from your throat. Remember those bladdernut gloves. They reek less than his grin yellowed by beetle nut and river rot. He unwraps a burlap bundle beans like river stones, clumped with dried algae. 14th century ferrymen traded passage for tailies. But this one hoards flood-savvy seeds. A drunk miller once swore they sprouted from a drowned saint's beard. You're skeptical until he spits into the mud. Brackish froth bubbles around the beans they shudder, then drink. Stories first. He croaks, a voice like oars dragging through sludge. Historians still argue whether ferrymen's stories mapped secret routes or just echoed lonely men's rambles. Your lies must be tastier than truth. You invent a bridge, obsidian arches guarded by a one-eyed trout. He nods, hungry for fiction, and tosses you 3 silt-caked pods. Dusk paints the river copper. His skiff creaks, a symphony of rot and regret. You crack a pod, beans rattle like dead men's teeth. Plant them where floods steal, they thrive on loss. Rain starts sharp needles pricking your neck. The ferryman hums a dirge about drowned villages. His payment bought you seeds and the weight of waterlogged ghosts. Rain slicks the cobblestones as you stumble into the cobbler's lean-to. His awning droops under the downpour. Remember those river-soaked beans. Their ghostly rattle still haunts your pockets. The old man huddles over his workbench. Cracked boots line the walls like fossilized feet. His hands, swollen knuckles wrapped in rabbitskin bandages, unlace a patched left boot. Inside pulses a single pea pod, dried to parchment, its curves cradling 5 lumpy promises, medieval cobblers, often stuffed shoes with moss or rags. But this one guards a different insulation. He wheezes a laugh, 3 teeth clicking like loose hobnails. Found it sprouting from a night's spur, he rasps. Planted in blood rust and arrogance, harvested in shame. Historians still argue whether nobles buried peas with armor for luck, or some half-remembered pagan rite. You offer a tin of beeswax, the kind that preserves both leather and secrets. He splits the pod with a yellowed thumbnail. 2 peas tumble into your palm. Green as envy, hard as sinners' regrets. Plant these with nail parings, he advises. Metal feeds their spite. The remaining 3 rattle in his fist, destined for the pot. Boil these with mint, they'll cure lies on your tongue. Outside, the storm hisses through dwindling crowds. A drunken dyer staggers by, his indigo-stained hands clutching empty seed sacks. The cobbler spits into his fire pit. Flames sizzle like a cat's displeasure. They say St. Crispin's bones fertilize my turnip patch, he mutters. Rot, that's saints for you. You pocket the spite seeds. Their edges bite your fingertips through the cloth. The cobbler knots his ruined boot shut, a farewell gesture. Damp leather creaks as he leans closer. Mind the crossroads, he whispers. Peas don't forgive easy planting. Mud sucks at your heels as you retreat. Somewhere, a child wails over spilled lentils. The pea pod's husk crumbles in your grip, dust mingling with rain. 2 seeds for tomorrow's gamble, 3 for tonight's thin broth. Choices sprout in silence, roots curling through the dark. Mud cakes your boot heels thicker than monastery gruel as you shuffle toward the pottery stall. Kiln smoke tangles with drizzle. The sour bite of burnt earth pricks your throat. A woman kneads gray clay, her palms raw, fingers trembling like saplings in a squall. Dozens of lentils bake in a sagging rack, their surfaces glazed like miniature pots. Medieval potters often layered clay with horsehair for strength, but her mix glitters with something sharper. Kiln dust from the royal workshops, she croaks, tapping a cracked urn. Fires the husks harder than Canterbury Cathedral's tiles. Her thumbnail split down the middle catches on a lentil's pocked surface. You stifle a joke about peas in armor. Somehow, nothing here feels laugh-worthy. She drops 3 seeds into your palm. They click like dice. Bury them near a lime kiln's ashes, she instructs. These stalks'll hold up your roof if the rats don't gnaw through first. Historians still argue whether ceramicists traded secrets with siege engineers. Those vaulted arches and brittle lentils share too many curves. You trade saltpeter, worth its weight in preservation, for a dozen stony legumes. Rain hisses against hot kiln stones. Steam rises like phantom wheat. The potter rubs her wrists, a jerky motion, as if shaking off spider webs. My grandmother swore she grew lentils in a jug, she mutters, fed 7 children through the great rot, roots busting through clay like it was butter. A drop of blood blooms on her bandage. She smears it across a seed's dimpled face. Across the lane, a tanner's apprentice gags on bladdernut stench. You pocket the ceramic lentils. They nestle against the cobbler's spite piece like rivals. The potter collapses onto a three-legged stool. Its uneven legs mimic her swaying posture. They'll grow, she insists, too loudly, even in stony soil, even in your doubting hands. Dusk bleeds into the storm. The Faire's lanterns cough weak light. You retreat ankles weighted with mud and skepticism. Somewhere behind you, a clay pot shatters. The woman's curse follows, crumbled, as the lentils promises, as you vanish into the smothering gray. Rainwater drips through your hood, each drop hissing against the satchel of seeds at your hip. A sagging tent flaps ahead. Its moth-chewed banner shows peeling poppy blooms. Inside, a woman hunches over a table, cluttered with dried petals, their edges curling like crones, fingernails. Poppy cultivation thrived in monastic gardens, their milky sap bottled for pain relief. But this herbalist's stock reeks of neglect, mold freckling her jars of valerian and yarrow. She rolls a vial between thumb and forefinger, the glass fogged its contents, whispering as they shift. Flanders, she rasps, nodding at the banner. Planted these where cannon fire salted the earth, still grew like grief. Historians still argue whether midwives used poppy tinctures to ease childbirth, or just to silence stillborn wails. You lean closer, spotting blisters around her nostrils, the telltale itch of habitual use. She pockets an empty dram bottle, her sleeve snagging on a thistle stem. 43 seasons I've brewed these, she says, too cheery, like a tavern hostess, lowering last call's torch. The vial tips into your palm, lighter than a sparrow's wishbone. Plant them where your mother sleeps, she croaks, grabbing your wrist. Her grip feels like bundled twigs. Or burn them, let the smoke blur your worst memories. A cough rattles her chest. You catch the sour tang of lungwort tea. Medieval bakers sometimes slipped poppy seeds into adulterated loaves. Criminals paid extra for the vivid dreams. You roll the vial, counting maybe 12 seeds, each one dented as an old bullet. She slumps onto a mildewed cushion, her breath fogging the air. They'll sleep 7 years, she wheezes, wake screaming for harvest if the soil's rich with regrets. Outside, a horse whinnies, its panic sharp in the sodden air. You pocket the vial, feeling it nestle against the potter's ceramic lentils. The herbalist fumbles with a tinderbox, hands shaking, before spilling ash across her lap. My apprentice, she starts, then stops. The unspoken name hangs between you, another loose thread in the Faire's unraveling tapestry. Distant church bells groaning nones. The hour feels older than its years. She presses a petal to your sleeve, its crimson bleeding into the wool. Forgot the price, she murmurs more to herself. Suppose it's covered by now. Her laugh turns wet, a death rattle chuckle, as rain drums the tense, sagging spine. You step backward, mud sucking at your boots. The vial slips deeper into your sleeve, cold against the pulse point. Her candle gutters, casting shadows like grasping hands. And you're moving, always moving before the flame fails entirely. The butcher's stall hits you like a gut punch, tallow smoke, and iron tang clawing at your throat. His cleaver splits a femur, marrow glistens yellow as a winter sunrise. Kernels bob in a boiling pot, plump and glossy, drunk on broth, skimmed from battle stallion bones. Medieval kitchens often boiled grains in animal fats during famines, a crooked path to fullness. You count 17 seeds stuck to the pot rim, each one swollen beyond natural size. The butcher licks his blade, a grin splitting his beard. Tastes like venison stew if you chew slow enough. He growls, tossing a kernel into his maw. It crunches loud as a breaking spine. Historians still argue whether castle sieges sparked these meatless recipes, or just butcher's desperation to sell scraps. Your stomach clenches, half hunger, half revulsion. He scoops a handful of seeds dripping and extends them. Trade. Your cider flask feels lighter now, the herbalist's vial heavier. He nods at it, eyes narrowing. That'll buy you 2 palmfuls, enough to trick a family through Lent. A joke, maybe, but his knuckles whiten around the cleaver. You've heard tales of bone bread from the siege of Leningrad. Centuries later, same desperate alchemy. The kernels steam in your hand, slick as newborn mice. A fringe text from your youth whispered of Prussian soldiers planting such grains, harvesting flesh-pink corn ears. You gag, but swallow bile. It's warmer than the air. He leans closer, reeking of old slaughter. Plant him in ash, makes him thirsty for blood. He murmurs, pressing a shriveled stalk into your grip. The stem oozes something viscous, almost alive. Your last silver button buys a linen pouch, stained brown. As you leave, he barks a laugh sharp enough to startle crows. The seeds shift in their sack, a wet murmur against your hip. You think of the potter's ceramic lentils, how their unbreakable shells might have contained this hunger. Frost etches the market path, each step a crackle of protest. The pouch warms against your thigh, fermenting or imagining things. A child's rhyme floats back, something about marrow maize and murdered days. But the melody dissolves in the wind. You'll plant 1 seed at the crossroads, burn the rest come spring. Maybe. The frostbite apple core still weighs your pocket, its shriveled pips singing of ducal orchards. Fleeing the butcher's marrow stench, you nearly trip over a wicker basket. Carrot tops brush your shins, feathery green against the mud. A hand clamps your wrist, calluses snagging wool. You freeze. Fingers skate across your palm, mapping creases like irrigation canals. Too much willow in your walk, rasps a voice older than the Faire. Soil favors bent backs, not stiff spines. Historians note medieval gardens often employed blind tenders, their touch detecting soil health better than any eye. The man tilts his head, cloudy gaze aimed at your collarbone. His thumb finds the scar on your index finger, the one from the potter's shard. Good, he grunts. Hands that know breaking make gentle patting downs. He releases you, plunging both fists into his basket. Seeds skitter across his palms, tiny and rust-colored. Carrots bred for fingers, not eyes, he says. 5 varieties. You count each ridged differently. 1 mimics your own fingerprint. A fringe herbal from your village swore carrots once grew purple, their sweetness curdled by daylight. You lean in, catching a scent like rain on hot stones. The gardener scoffs. Colors for nobles. Taste lives in the taproot's sigh when pulled. Historians still argue whether orange carrots were bred for Dutch royalty or just a happy accident with mutant seeds. Your boot crushes a dried pea from the cobbler's trade, its pop loud as a knuckle crack. The gardener stuffs your hand with seeds, edges sharp as teeth. Sow them barehanded, he commands. No gloves, no tools. Let your blisters bleed into the furrows. His price. A story about something you've buried. You describe the heretic's oat grave, how the miller's daughter swore sprouts emerged shaped like tiny gallows. He clicks his tongue, approving. Rot makes honest translators, he says, seeds vanishing into your sleeve. 1 variety sticks to your sweat, a stubborn burr. You picture planting them beside the bone maze, ash and blisters colluding underground. The gardener spins away, basket swaying, already hunting the next patron. Dusk blunts the market's edges. Unseen roots tremble beneath your feet, or maybe it's just the cider. That fingerprint seed itches against your wrist, a whisper in braille you can't decode. You've half a mind to swallow it, let your gut translate. But night breathes colder now. You knot the seeds in a twist of burlap, next to the nun's mead-stained melons. Somewhere ahead, a blind man laughs the sound, rich as loam. Your spine bends, just a fraction, as you trudge toward gate torches flickering like distant warnings. The gate torches gutter as you approach, their smoke curling into pseudo-holy shapes. A priest stands where shadows pool thickest, his cassock patched with what might be communion cloth or mold. Chaff dusts his collar, flakes of golden sin clinging to a ledger of parchment scraps. Confess, he says, not a request. The word hangs like a scythe mid-swing. You glance at the burlap bundle, its contents shifting like guilty thoughts. Historians note medieval clergy often mixed sacramental rites with seed distribution, blessings literal and agricultural. He extends a bony hand. Your transgressions, soul-bound ones. The ledger rustles, pages scribbled with crop failures and stolen harvests. You mention the nuns' melons, their honeyed theft from a dead monastery's earth. Scrape 3 kernels, he instructs, pressing a wheat stalk into your palm. Its husk pricks like a dozen tiny paternosters. Scholars still argue whether priests added ground bone to blight-resistant grains, or if that's just Reformation propaganda. A quirky dream tree ties sold at your last fair claimed chaff stuffed in mattresses could mute a cheating spouse's snores. The priest's eyes narrow, as if hearing that memory. 4 Hail Marys worth, he mutters, counting seeds onto your open ledger page. You bargain, offering gossip about the miller's counterfeit oats. He snorts. Heresy grows faster than rye. Give me the doubting heart. His thumb smears ash across your wrist, an impromptu benediction. The wheat grains heat up, nestled against your pulse. Plant by confessionals, he insists, where soil remembers whispered regrets. Absolution sprouts tallest near unmarked graves, you're told, its roots hungry for unsaid things. Doubt knots your throat. Was the baker's rebellious sourdough truly blessed, or just undercooked? The priest pockets your silver, a coin left from the heirloom bean trade. Faith fertilizes, he says, though his smile suggests a different crop. 3 seeds slip between floorboards as you leave. You let them lie ghost wheat for whatever haunts night markets. The gate's flame finally dies, its last ember winking like a priest's withheld secret. Shadows swallow, stalls their canvas bones, collapsing like starved ribs. Your satchel bulges, each seed a dry whisper against your hip. Damp cobblestones glint, last traces of sun, fleeing through merchant carts, stripped bare. Historians note medieval fairs, often birthed gray market trades, as vendors scrambled to offload wares. A boot scuffs stone behind you, the scrape echoing off empty ale barrels. You turn, facing a silhouette backlit by dying coals. Their cloak billows, though no wind stirs the ash-choked air. One last bargain rasps a voice like burlap on blisters. They extend a hand, palm upturned. A single seed rests there, dull as old lead. Its surface swirls with grooves resembling a miniature storm. A child's laugh. You lean closer, the patterns shift. Quirky ledgers from 14th century. Marseille describe mirage seeds sold to crusaders, imbued with desert hallucinations. No name, the stranger says, anticipating your question. No tongue can hold it. Their collar gaps, revealing a neck tattooed with what might be crop circles or plague scars. You ask the price. They laugh, a sound like peas rattling in a dried gourd. A memory. When you frown, they clarify. One you'll miss. The seed pulses faintly. Or is that torch smoke stinging your eyes? Your fingers hover. The Faire's cacophony lives in your bag, nun's melons, cobbler's pea pod, butcher's marrow maize. Historians still argue whether twilight-traded seeds held symbolic weight or just exploited the drunks and desperate. The stranger's sleeve brushes your wrist, exhaling a scent of burnt honey and mildewed parchment. Choose, they urge. Dawn won't bargain twice. You recall the levy-keeper's orphan, how their flood-soaked rice grains stuck to your palm like secrets. What memories worth losing? The spinster's lamplit face, as she described north-facing flax, the heirloom cart, elder's soul-crusted thumbprint on your silver button. You pluck the seed, surprised by its warmth. The stranger steps back, hood dipping like a sated scavenger. Planted where shadows bite deepest, they murmur, unless you prefer predictable harvests. As they retreat, a realization hits. You've forgotten which memory vanished. Was it the taste of the baker's sourdough starter? the exact pitch of the chiming seed pods. Your fingers tighten around the seed. It thrums, a mute fetus in a chalk womb. Merchants huddle around rekindled fires, their laughter sharp with dwindling ale. You walk east, where the Faire's edge dissolves into wheat fields. A ditch yawns half-filled with rotten straw and the skeletons of market umbrellas. Kneeling, you claw damp soil, burying the seed beneath knuckle-depth muck. The earth shivers, or perhaps you imagine it. Somewhere, a mule brays at the joke. Behind your ribs, a hollow space hums. Missing something. Gaining what? You stand wiping hands on hose already stained with too many stories. Night swallows the path home, your satchel lighter and heavier all at once. The horizon glows, just enough to spot a single sprout unfurling where no seed was sown. Shadows drape the stalls, canvas rippling like breathless lungs. Your satchel nestles close, seeds silent as spilled starlight. Damp stones catch faint glimmers. Days last sigh pooling in wagon ruts. Some say traders once buried unsold wares beneath these cobbles, ghost-rooted bargains for another age. A heel grinds pebbles behind you, a murmur against the hush. You pivot, meeting a figure haloed by ember glow. Their cloak hangs still, yet shifts as if touched by unseen tides. A final trade offers a voice unraveled by seasons. Their palm opens, cradling a seed dull as tarnished pewter. Ripples carve its surface, maybe maps of distant storms, or the wrinkles around a sleeping child's eyes. Records from old Marseille tell of dust seeds sold to pilgrims who craved mirages of oases. No title, the stranger murmurs, fingers curling like roots. Words crumble around it. Their throat bears marks, perhaps tally scars, or ancient glyphs raked by claws. You ask what they seek. A chuckle dry as husks in a cracked jug, a memory, one that aches when pulled loose. The seed glimmers weakly, or is that ash glinting in your lashes? Your hand trembles. The bag holds sunlit hours, pungent herbs, blushing apricot pits, barley grains shaped like teardrops. Scholars still quarrel, were these dusk deals sacred, or just vultures circling the weary? The stranger's cuff grazes your arm, smelling of charred rosemary and yellowed bookbindings. Now they press. Night's ledger closes soon. You think of the dike watcher's daughter, her palms caked with silt, as she pressed swamp rice into yours. What loss fits the trade? The widow's tale of frost-resistant rye. The way the seed elders hummed as they sorted millet. You take the seed, its heat startling as a held breath. The figure bows, a vulture retreating from picked bones. Bury it where shadows taste like iron, they advise. Unless their silence lingers. Already the gap yawns. Was it the miller's lullaby you've lost? The exact heft of a copper scale weight. The seed pulses, a mute heart cocooned in dust. Vendors murmur by rekindled flames, voices hollowed by spent ale. You drift eastward, where the Faire melts into unsown fields. A ditch waits, clotted with wilted garlands and splintered spades. Kneeling, you claw moist earth, nestling the seed beneath thumb-deep loam. The soil trembles, or maybe it's your tired mind. Somewhere, a donkey snorts at the farce. Beneath your sternum, an emptiness hums. Something gone, something waiting. You rise, dirt-crusting nails already etched with tailies. Night cradles the path home, your bag a ghost of its former self. The horizon holds its breath, just long enough to glimpse a vine spiraling where nothing was planted.